In today's episode of Bike Fit Tuesdays, fixing neck and shoulder pain on the bike.
Hello!
With help from Rachel. Cool, that's a wrap, guys. So perfect opportunity today to do a Bike Fit Tuesdays on neck and shoulder pain. Because we have someone with neck and shoulder pain with us. Thanks Rachel for helping us with this video.
It's okay, sort my pain out.
Yeah, sort her pain out.
It's now so long. She just doesn't want to pedal anymore. She's had enough.
Were you filming me?
We've done, yes.
This is a camera.
Just to explain, this is the second video we've done with Rachel, so she's tired. She's done about 50k on this thing.
And I've had 2 Cokes and a coffee.
And you've had a lot of caffeine. So what are the common causes of neck and shoulder pain on the bike?
Excessive bar width. When the bar's too wide, riders very often end up rolling the wrists in, which creates quite a lot of tension through the upper arms and into the neck and shoulders and into the traps. If the reach is too long, if the rider is essentially doing a plank and having to ride a bike at the same time, based on the fact that we all like our bikes to look a certain way with very long stems and them to be quite aggressive. That again, I mean, if you have a look at Rachel's shoulders here, how they've sort of ridden up. That again is going to create neck and shoulder issues. It creates an inability to look ahead as well. That's usually quite important when travelling at speed. Other common causes are excessive saddle pitch. So thank you British Cycling for your solution on women's saddle issues. Just applying loads of pitch to the saddle, which creates a slope. What happens when you put something on a slope? It rolls down the slope. I'm talking about the ever-present force that is gravity. So you end up rolling down the slope, bracing with the arms. Okay, lots of neck and shoulder tension again. Insufficient saddle setback, so if the saddle is too far forward, it ends up putting the rider's centre of gravity into the front of the bike. Again, very common in racing positions, and particularly thanks in no part to silly short-nosed saddles, which encourage riders to push the saddle further forward to open the hips up. Thank you physiotherapists. What that does though, in turn, is it throws the weight of the rider into the front of the bicycle, so you end up neck and shoulder. I think neck and shoulder issues tend to be accompanied by other problems, particularly hand issues. So, numb hands, tingling pins and needles, that sort of stuff. What else? Excessive saddle height as well. Unsurprisingly, if you watch the last Bike Fit Tuesdays, you'll see that basically every cycling ailment under the sun can be traced back to excessive saddle height. Neck and shoulder issues is no exception. When the saddle's set too high, the rider ends up, again, they end up with postural engagement with the hamstrings, which throws them into the front of the bike again. So again, excessive saddle height, neck and shoulder issues.
So how do you identify which one of those is causing the pain?
Okay, if we start with handlebar width. Consider first and foremost, most off-the-shelf bikes, handlebars too wide, particularly for women. Women's bikes, there's no such thing as a women's bike, but you don't want to get me on that soapbox. Basically, women's bikes, the handlebars are generally a little bit narrower, but they're nowhere near narrow enough. Basically, a very common symptom is to roll the wrists. It's generally a means of trying to align the hands with the shoulder width. I mean, if you consider that as a human being, nobody stands like that, so why would we want our hands to be like that on a bicycle? The hands fall by the side, so it makes perfect sense to me that we want our hands to be the same width as our shoulders. We have actually talked about this in a previous video. You're going to put a link down below to that handlebars. But you can measure yourself or have a friend measure. We're going to use Chris over here, and you can measure across a chromium process. It's the distal part of the top of the scapula. So Chris is quite a slender guy, so he's 32 centimeters. Basically, that to a certain degree can dictate handlebar width. The next one is reach. Excessive reach. Mm-hmm. How do you know if your reach is too long? Well, if you've got one of these on your bike. If you've got a extremely long stem on the bike, that's almost definitely going to be a good giveaway. One of the things to consider is if you feel a little bit stretched out, you're almost definitely way too stretched out. We were having this conversation with Rachel earlier in that you're very good at absorbing dysfunction as a human being, what makes us such a successful species. If it feels too long, like I say, it's way too long on the grounds that with regards to reach, you'll be able to absorb to the point that, oh, now all of a sudden I can feel it. So realistically, if it feels a little bit long, have a go at lopping 20mm off the front of the bike. That could be one way of going about it. Do not, and this leads us to our next point, do not push the saddle further forward, because actually if you've got insufficient setback applied to your saddle, it'll offset your centre of mass. So if the saddle's pushed really, really far forward on its rails, on your seat post, that could again be another potential cause for neck and shoulder issues. And finally, if you've got loads of pitch applied to your saddle, level it.
Pretty
if the
obvious,
saddle then causes you issues, drop it. If it still causes you issues, change it.
So in terms of remedies, you kind of covered a few in the last segment, like reducing your stem length, fixing the saddle tilt, reducing the width of the handlebars. But are there any other ways you can remedy this if you've already done all of those things?
The most common change I make, one of the most common changes I make to people's bikes is handlebars, but in the sense that it quite often kills two birds with one stone. It's important to understand that handlebars have different reaches. So with Rachel's bike, it's got a Bontrager handlebar which has quite a long reach from the difference, the reach being the distance between the centre of the bore to where the controller is located. The reach is very, very long. By changing the handlebar, same width, but just something with a slightly shorter reach like this Data RHM, lops off about 20mm of reach without really making huge changes to the bike. So that could be another potential change to make to the bike.
It's also a nice way of reducing the reach without going really dinky in the stem.
So it's worth noting that not all handlebar shapes are born equal. They're all the same in terms of this distance. So yeah, that's a very common. And actually, even control location on the handlebar and where it's located. So if you've got the control located lower down on the handlebar, that tends to add to the reach. But rather than that, so what I tend to do is set the handlebar with the drop relatively flat, and then have the control located almost as high as I can possibly get it, on the grounds that it offsets that reach. So even just a means of playing around with bar rotation and control location can actually pay dividends in improving neck and shoulder position.
And that's free.
Well, on the subject of controls, actually, quite often if you've got the control completely flat, that again could also cause neck and shoulder issues on the grounds that you end up having to rotate the wrist. What we're looking for is for a nice, smooth interact, like a non-tense, a soft interaction with the bicycle. We don't want you to be kind of twisted and contorted and have all this tension being held. So if I quite often add a little bit of elevation to the shifters so that they kind of fit the hand as the hand's presented to the shifter, rather than hand flat, almost never have them negative like this. So you know, that's yet another potential trick that might improve things for you.
Did it work?
Yes, 100%.
You can't even reach the handlebars now though. So that concludes another episode of Bike Fit Tuesdays. Please like, comment and subscribe. Please leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and James and myself will do our best to answer them. Equally, I'll put a link down below to James's shop if you want to book a bike fit in person. You just did what?
I'm just peeking. Look.
Hey Dylan, you're like a parrot on my shoulder.
I'm a parrot on your shoulder.
Get a bike fit!